Everyone, this is Maruko, and welcome back to What If Deku Had a Corruption Quirk? In the previous part, we were finishing up the USJ incident, so let's start from there. Deku, the next day, had woken up, plagued by his thoughts, plagued by the concept that he had beaten and killed a lot of villains. Despite All Might's words of encouragement and Uraraka's self-assurance that she would be there for him, he couldn't get it out of his head. It was like a plague that wouldn't leave him alone. He got up, went over to the closet, and started getting dressed for him to go out. He wanted to go out and see if he can clear his head. He thought if he got some fresh air, it might help. So he got dressed and he went downstairs to eat something. They had the next couple of days off, so he knew it didn't matter if he went out or not. They were getting a break because of the incident. So he thought, why not make the best of it? After eating, he left the house in a slump. He walked to the nearby park where he thought maybe the atmosphere would help him to clear his head and get better, but unfortunately, as he walked, it just seemed to linger more and more and more. It played on loop inside of his head, like something just took over his body, prevented him from thinking rationally. It was both like it was and was not him at the same time. It troubled him deeply. He got to the park, and he sat on a bench. He watched as the birds flew by, but he was numb. He wished he could just find a solution to his problem, make it all go away, but that wouldn't happen. He knew that there was no undoing what he did. This troubled him deeply. It almost broke him a few times. Having to push forward, thinking that he was the problem. That if only he wasn't around, that maybe they'd live. They'd be able to be arrested and have proper justice, but there was no going back from that. Suddenly, he heard something coming from behind him, and when he turned around, he saw Uraraka there. She tried to approach him gently, trying not to spook him or cause any problems. She merely wanted to help. She merely wanted to give him comfort and relief. She went and sat next to him, and he just looked down, ashamed of himself, ashamed of what he believed himself to be. She knew that trying to help him was going to be a very difficult process, because she herself knew that what had happened wasn't just going to be swept under the rug. It was going to haunt him for a very long time. It was going to take a lot of healing for him to recover. She put her arms around him and hugged him tight. She told him that in her eyes there was no solving this any other way, and that if it wasn't for him, some of the students could have died. Mr. Aizawa could have died if he hadn't done anything. He knew what she was saying was true, but it still troubled him. He weighed the concept in his head, and he believed that no matter what she says or how she tries to put it, there is no justifying the stealing of a life. Robbing someone of their life, it plagued him like poison. It filled him with doubt, even. But the more that he thought about it, the better it seemed to get in his heart. The girl that he had feelings for was there for him. She believed in him. She believed that he was good, that he would make things right in his own way, and that he would protect her, and that no matter what, he was going to be a hero in her eyes. His heart was full, and he felt joy in knowing that at least someone believed in him. Someone believed that he could still be a hero, that he was her hero, first and foremost. He thanked her for her kind words and embraced her back. She patted his back to relieve him of his pain, telling him that it's okay, that the way he feels, it's justified that he would feel such regret over it. And that proves that he can still be a hero because he does feel regret. The difference between a hero and a villain is that when a hero makes a mistake, they're going to feel the regret, and they're going to wish that they could make it better, wish that they could have done something better. That's what makes a hero human. That itself is what makes the heart of a hero, is the weighing of such things. He may not want to feel the regret, nor will he ever be able to erase what happened. But because of that fact that he wants to make things better, the fact that he regrets what he did, that's what matters. A hero will want to make right of their mistakes, will want to make amends. But a villain will not care for what they do. They will not repent for hurting others. They won't care who they hurt or how they have hurt them. But he did, and that made his heart swell. The encouragement that she was there for him despite that is what made him happy. They let go of the embrace, and he looked deep into her eyes, and he saw the hope that he needed so desperately to cling to. He saw exactly what he needed in that moment, and that was someone to believe in him. He thanked her for her generous words, and she proposed the idea that if he's not feeling the best, that she will spend the day with him help him feel better and help him to overcome this doubt that clouds his heart. He smiled, and he thanked her for her generosity and for her kind heart. They both got up, and he offered to take her out somewhere. She was giddy at the thought of going out with Deku, while she knew in her heart that it may not be a date. The prospect of going somewhere with Deku in a fashion that could be seen as a date was enough for her to be happy. So he took her to the mall, and the first place they went was to a small bakery. They went inside, and Ochako saw a box set of mochi. She was drooling at the seams, wanting that mochi, and just as she was about to pull out her wallet, Deku declined that and said, No, you are showing me such kindness by encouraging me. The least I can do is repay your kindness. She insisted that she didn't want him to pay for her, but there is no winning this fight, that he was going to do as he pleased, and she wasn't going to stop him, no matter how much she protested that she didn't want him to spend his money on her. He got her the mochi and got himself some pastries too. And she carried the little bag with a box set of mochi as they walked. And he and her went to a store, and they started looking around. They started to look through some clothes at the store, and they were making fun, having some laughs, joking around. This cheered Deku up. It made him plenty happy that someone would caringly do this for him, spend their time to assure him that he is important, that his pain that he feels at the moment is not some joke, that what he's feeling, it is real, but if he didn't do what he did, there would have been a lot of casualties. His day was so bright and so filled with joy, all because of Uraraka. He saw a dress, and he jokingly had told her to try it on. Not thinking anything of it, she took the dress and she went into the dressing room and put it on. When she came out, Deku was amazed at her beauty. He couldn't believe how pretty she looked in a dress. He told her that she looked fantastic in it. The dress that she was wearing was a long, flowy dress that went about to her calves. It had little flower petals lining the bottom and with frills, and all up the dress it was a slight cute pink, with it almost looking like a sundress, just pink. Though on the accent of the arms was little frills that went halfway down her arm, or halfway down to her elbow. The dress had tiny strawberries here and there on it. She was embarrassed and thanked him for the compliment. And then she glanced over and she saw a different dress, but didn't want to say anything because it looked expensive and she didn't want to trouble Deku like that. But Uraraka never realized the fact that Deku could see the direction that she looked, and when he saw the other dress, he looked back at her, then looked back to the dress, grabbed it, and brought it to her. He told her that now she was going to try this one on. She was flattered at the fact that he had grabbed the same dress, but she didn't want to. And then he looked deep into her eyes and said, either you willingly put the dress on, or I'm gonna make you put the dress on. She conceded and put the dress on. Now this dress was a strapped dress that went about to just above her chest line, and it was a very long black dress that split at the thigh going down, all the way down to halfway down her calves. And in that moment, when Deku saw her wear the dress, he knew that he was going to get this for her, whether she liked it or not. But she protested that she didn't want him to spend such money on him. She didn't want him to spend all that money on her. So she tried to pay for it herself, but he refused. And he ended up buying the dress for her and told her that this was another token for her kindness. They spent the rest of the day together, just having fun, goofing around. Deku, even though he wouldn't admit it, his feelings for her were strong, and he appreciated her more than she could ever imagine. And in his heart, even though he wouldn't admit that one either, he felt like in his heart this was a date, that they both had gone on a date, and Uraraka had that same feeling in her heart. But she was too embarrassed to admit it, because she didn't think that Deku would love her. But the truth was that he loved her more than she could ever imagine. After the break, they both returned to school with their other classmates. And Mr. Aizawa, they thought he wouldn't be in class because of how injured and hurt he was. But lo and behold, he came into the classroom looking like a mummy. And one of the students asked Mr. Aizawa if he was sure that he could teach like this, that he looked like he was too hurt. Aizawa said that hospitals were for the weak and that he only needed 1 or 3 days of rest, that's it. They were amazed at the fact that he had that much of a pain tolerance that he literally left the hospital without even being properly healed. he had a lot of grit. He then proceeded to tell the students that they were going to continue with the sports festival. They protested that they should not be doing the sports festival so close to the attack. But Aizawa said that if they were to cancel the sports festival, then that would mean that they had lost. That the heroes lost to the villains that day, and that they refused to bow to these villains, that they refused to give them a single shred or an edge on them. So, they did the sports festival. They were transported there via a bus, and they were all the students were waiting in the specialized room for the UA students, waiting for them to be called out. When they were called out, they all went to the stadium field, and a couple of the students were surprised at the turnout, but they shouldn't be. It is a event where basically adults get to watch students utterly beat the crap out of each other for their amusement. But Midnight had taken the stage, and she started spinning the wheel that would determine exactly which events were going to happen. The first event was obviously the race. Deku and some of the other students were thrilled at the idea of the first event being the obstacle course race. So they all went to the starting line, and they all got ready. Deku was just thinking while sitting there, waiting for it to start. He was calculating exactly how he thought things were going to play out. He knew that Todoroki would more than likely take the lead by freezing the corridor where the students were going to be piling out. So he amped up his quirk to 10% and got his hands ready to basically take the lead in this sense. As soon as the starter pistol went off, Deku shot his corruption whips out, and they clung to the walls almost like spider webs, and he catapulted himself out of the corridor, and not a moment later, Todoroki had frozen the entire corridor. I believe the next part was the robots. Let's just say that while Deku was flying out of the corridor, he saw the robots standing there, put his hands together, and summoned his corruption daggers, and started spinning mid-air, almost almost like a drill. And as he made contact with the robot, basically, you know what he did. He drilled right through the robot and pierced all the way through the other side without a single scratch and just barely any loss of momentum due to the contact with the robot. And the robot had fallen, and it was about to land on Todoroki, but Todoroki had frozen them in place just long enough for himself to pass by, and was essentially doing a surfing slide motion on his ice on the ground, just kind of skating along trying to catch up to Deku. And Bakugo was not very far behind, using his explosions to propel himself forward. when they got to the pit, let's just say that Deku didn't have to worry about that one either. Though, let's put it like this. Uraraka is not going to be a back horse in this one. While they weren't noticing, and while Deku was using his black corruption whips to basically attach to the varying tiny islands around them and propelling himself forward, a very, very loud boom sound had come from behind them. Not boom like an explosion, but like just like almost like a shockwave of pressure kind of explosion came from behind them. Deku knew exactly what was going on, and as he got to the other side of the chasm, he turned around, and flying towards him was none other than Ochako Uraraka, flying through the air. He, in his attempt to not be shown up by her, raised his corruption power level to 25% using his own motivated emotions and some that he had like basically drained out of Kachan due to him being a frustrated Pomeranian dog, and in the same fashion propelled himself forward with a shockwave after hitting the ground, so that he was able to quickly start jumping through the air. Every time that he hit the ground, he would make another kinetic explosion to the ground, trying to not lose the lead. Todoroki was in third place. No, wait, actually, Bakugo was in third place. Todoroki had fallen behind because there is no way he's getting through the pit as fast as both Uraraka, Deku, and Bakugo can fly through it. But because of Uraraka also being weightless whenever she had kinetically exploded through the air, she was going fairly fast, catching up to Deku very quickly. And then, because of the fact that she was flying so fast, she had to release her the gravity on herself, otherwise it would cause some motion sickness flying through the air with no gravity and probably make her lightheaded. As she hit the ground, they had barely gotten to the minefield. Mind you, Uraraka had not fallen on a mine, but like they were just there, and he saw that Uraraka looked like she was getting a little bit worse for wear due to the zero gravity and the very quick motion of her moving very fast was going to probably cause like a jet lag effect, making her a little bit sick. And Deku, being the soft little bean and supportive boy who unintentionally had a very soft spot in his heart for the brunette girl with mochi cheeks, helped her up, put her on his back, and after sucking up the negative emotions in her of the exhaustion getting to her from having to go that fast while weightless, boosted to 30%, and let's just say he jumped all the way past the mines and carried her to the finish. Mind you, Bakugo almost caught up to him in that moment, but as he was jumping past, he had used his corruption whips to smack the ground as Bakugo had got there, and it basically caused an explosion in Bakugo's face, disorienting him and knocking him back a little bit, so that he wouldn't have as much ability to get past both Deku and Uraraka and take the lead. And I tell you what, Deku is going to need a lot of time. Like, he's going to need all the time he can get with Uraraka on his back, because the way is strong, but trying to carry an entire human being while jumping that far with all those mines, it's going to weigh you down a bit, and it's going to be fairly difficult. But Deku gets first, and because of Uraraka being on his back, got second. Bakugo got third, which irritated him, and Todoroki got fourth, because he is not as fast as Bakugo, while due to being very far back because of the chasm. This leads into the next part where they spin the wheel again to determine which event they will be doing next. And I'm not going to say that I'm basically going to skip past all of the stupid horseman part. I'm just going to get straight to the tournament thing where they're fighting against each other. And since things are different, I'm going to basically do the fights that really matter. I'll do that. Okay, so basically it's Deku versus Shinzo in the first match. Now, I understand that essentially it wouldn't be exactly, let's see, how do I put this? It wouldn't go good for Deku if Deku didn't take Ojiro's advice, and I'm going to say Deku is more cautious in this part, you know? Like, he understands that if he screws this up, and then he's going to lose. So even after Deku almost talks, and because of the fact that Shinzo is insulting Ojiro, he's able to keep his cool. So the humiliation that Ojiro had felt, it had powered up Deku a bit, and he went to I'll say 35%. His threshold before he starts going crazy is at 50, so 35. And the man Deku pulls out his corruption daggers, dulls them because he doesn't want to kill anyone, and utterly beats the hell out of Shinzo for opening his mouth. He straight disrespected this man. Folded him like a lawn chair and 3 omelets. It didn't even last 30 seconds with him on the ring. The next fight is going to be Bakugo and Uraraka. Now, I'm pretty sure you know by now that the reason Uraraka did not win that is because of the fact that she just wasn't fast enough. She wins that. She wins that fight because, number 1, she's faster. Number 2, she has one for all. And number 3, her quirk is buffed, like, for real. So she's able to blitz him, touch him, and send him up into the air. And anytime he tries to use his explosions to maneuver himself, it doesn't exactly go very well, leading to him just surrendering because there's no way he's going to win. And if he tries to go towards the ground, then it's more than likely going to lead to him just smashing into the ground. So he loses that one. Next is, what was it? Deku versus Todoroki. Now, I'm not even going to, like, press the fact that this is basically, like, a difficult way to it's difficult to kind of, like, measure out how this is going to go, because Todoroki is freaking strong. Like, he's really strong. But because of the fact that, like, Deku is still Deku, he's going to obviously do the same things as in canon, and he's going to get Todoroki to use his flames. The speech is going to go a little bit differently. Like, he's still going to say, it's your quirk, but he's going to add to it. He's going to say, it's your quirk, Todoroki, not his. And for you to be fighting me right now without your full power, you are disrespecting every hero that had to break their limits to get to where they are. Todoroki feeling that he just got roasted to death, roasted the burned half of his face with flames, and just started pouring out fire at Deku. But because of the fact that Todoroki is angsty boy, he emo boy, Deku uses his hatred of his father to fan the flames of his power, boosting him to 45%. Now, mind you, he's gonna start slipping if he holds this form for too long. But he is able to break past most of Todoroki's ice and fire attacks, which leads to Todoroki being set off balance, and Deku puts all the power into his manifested fists and just destroys the ice, pushing Todoroki to the brink. And just as Todoroki is about to use, I think it's called a flash fire freeze, Deku rushes in, he blitzes him, and sends a fist directly into Todoroki's gut, launching him all the way into the wall of the stadium, ending this man's career. The final fight, unfortunately, because I kind of feel bad for this, is Deku versus Uraraka. And Deku doesn't want to hurt her. He really does not want to hurt her. But Uraraka basically looks at him and says, Deku, I don't want you to hold back on me. I want you to come at me with all you got. I want you to give me a real fight. Show me how far you've come, Deku. Prove to everyone in this stadium that the name Deku is going to be the name that encourages all to smile, even when their quirk may seem villainous. That there is basically a chance for every quirk to be used to save a life, to be a hero. Deku uses his 45%, and Uraraka boosts her power to, I'm gonna say, because of all the training, she'll go 25%, which is kind of evening it on both ends. And they start fighting. Deku is obviously not actually hurt, trying to punch, hit, kick, basically do any kind of very heavy damage on her, because he really doesn't want to hurt her and he feels bad for this. But Uraraka, being pushed back a bit, she wants to prove that she can stand by Deku, and she wants to prove that she is just as strong as him. So she charges her power into her right arm, uses her zero gravity on herself. And before you say anything about her using her gravity powers on him, I've made this clear. The man has a corruption whip. He doesn't need to worry about being anti-gravity because it just makes him stronger. Not to mention he can just fling himself around even if he is weightless. She charges all the power into herself, and she makes her legs weightless. So that, or most of her body except for her legs weightless. That way she can move a lot faster. But like still have some kind of gravity to attach herself to the ground. Because she can technically proportion exactly how much of herself she is able to make weightless. And she just rushes towards Deku. And as she punches him, he basically tanks it and is pushed to the very edge of the ring. But before he can fall out, he uses his whips to attach to the ground, keeping him from falling the rest of the way down. And he uses the whips, to propel himself forward, slamming into her. And they both like fly out of the ring. But because of the fact that he doesn't want to land on top of her, the man using his chivalrous attitude basically spins mid-air and hits the ground so that she can land on top of him safe without harm. He didn't anticipate this, but it appears that being weightless because of her punch and like flying into her like that, it like didn't calculate in his head fast enough. So President Mike basically like declares Uraraka the winner because Deku hit the ground first, technically. And Bakugo is pissed. Like severely pissed. Deku makes second place. Uraraka makes first place. And I think Tokoyami, because of it being still canon theory, is in third. Because, mind you, freaking, if it wasn't for the fact that, freaking, what was it? That Bakugo had beaten was beaten by Uraraka, and Todoroki got handed his ass by Deku, they would have ended up fighting like that. So it balances out. And that is the end of the UA Sports Festival. I hope that you enjoyed this part. For this is the end. And as I go, don't forget, the shadows are watching.